I don't think Dawn of War 4 is starting from zero. If anything, the success of Dawn of War Definitive Edition proves something quite important to me. People still care about this series, which makes Dawn of War 4 a much bigger deal, because not only is it trying to revive the name, it's trying to prove that the Dawn of War series can move forward again. And after having spent some time with the alpha build, I can say it up front, I'm far more positive than I expected. So today I want to break down why Dawn of War 4 has me cautiously optimistic, what's been confirmed, and where I still think the game will need to prove itself before launch. Because after Dawn of War 3, excitement is one thing, but the trust bit they have to earn back. Welcome back to LT Gaming, my name is Tom, and if you enjoy proper gaming breakdowns, give the video a like, help us get out there on the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe to LT Gaming, and consider a membership as well if you want the ultimate form of support. So let's get into the basics. Dawn of War 4 is being developed by King Art Games and published by Deep Silver, and it's currently set to launch on PC on the 17th of September this year. I think you can get access a few days earlier with a different edition too. So the big thing for me here is setting. We're going back to Kronos, years after Dark Crusade. And this really speaks to me because Dark Crusade, for me, is a seminal moment in the Dawn of War 1 series because it became properly addictive. The original games had the RTS template, but Dark Crusade and Soulstorm gave it this broad campaign hook. You didn't just have mission after mission. You had to take territory, build up your momentum, and you fell into this very addictive one more battle trap. So when Dawn of War 4 says Kronos is back, I don't think it's just a nostalgia play. For me, it indicates they want battles to feel connected once again, and at launch we're looking at a campaign, skirmish, multiplayer, and the last stand mode. The campaign is going to be playable solo or in co-op, which is fantastic for me and Luke, with more than 70 missions planned across 4 faction storylines. Then after launch, a mode called Crusade is coming as a free edition, and it sounds closer to the longer form conquest idea where armies persist and develop between battles. So before we get into the factions and combat, this is what has me hooked immediately. So the launch factions are Space Marines, Orcs, Necrons, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, who we see surfacing a lot lately in 40k. I'm a bit disappointed not to see the Imperial Guard in this lineup, if I'm being honest. But it is a strong starting roster. You do have familiar Dawn of War pillars there, but the Adeptus Mechanicus being added in properly is a big deal. They're going to bring a different flavour to the battlefield. First and foremost, the Space Marines are going to be the flexible elite option, as they often are. Tough squads, strong upgrades, drop-in pressure, and the campaign is going to focus on the Dark Angels as a playable sub-faction, so a bit more flesh to them this time. I think the Orcs are going to be exactly where they should be. Cheap expansion, big momentum, messy chaotic pressure, and just that lovely sense that the battle plan is mostly noise with an occasional genius moment by accident. Then my personal favourite from the original series, that is the Necrons, who are going to be that slow, oppressive map control. They regenerate, they teleport, they come back, you can never quite pin them down. Then there's the kind of unknown factor here, the Adeptus Mechanicus. From what they've been shown, they're going to be more ranged focused, more technical, and more synergy driven. So this is probably the faction I'm most curious about, because they're not just another returning army, they could add a different rhythm to the familiar Dawn of War paradigm. One slight concern for me here is DLC bloat. Now it is inevitable that they're going to add in armies in DLCs, I just hope there's something more meaningful and expansive for the player than just pay X amount of dollars to get a new army in the game, because that could get expensive very quickly for the player. So from what I've played so far, mechanically Dawn of War 4 feels very close to the first game. You build out a base, you take resource points, upgrade your structures, reinforce squads, change loadouts, and just try to hold on to the map as 3 directions come at you at once. This is Dawn of War 1 Rhythm, and honestly I don't think this is where the game needs to be wildly groundbreaking. The original formula was very strong. The important thing is that it feels good in 2026, so quality of life features, clean controls, better presentation and stronger visuals, and just clear feedback from the game that you're playing. And I will say here, they're working with a great foundation, so innovation doesn't mean they have to rip the whole thing apart, essentially just refine and polish it for the modern day. But I think the real innovation with this game lies somewhere else, and this is where the combat director comes in. And so I think this is probably the most interesting new idea in Dawn of War 4, the combat director. Old Dawn of Wars had sync kills, they were a huge part of why battles felt memorable. Units didn't just fall over when their health bar ran out, they got dragged into these brutal little animations that made the battlefield feel physical, messy, and very 40k. Dawn of War 4 is trying to push that idea further. Instead of just saving the spectacle for the finishing blows, the combat director is meant to make normal fights feel more synchronized, with units clashing, reacting, swarming, and dueling during the battle itself. And this is where I think there is a big room for Dawn of War 4 to genuinely stand out. Because the core RTS loop doesn't need to reinvent the wheel, but the way battles feel, the way units connect, the way a fight is looking like a proper Warhammer 40k scrap, rather than just two blobs politely exchanging damage numbers, could be the difference maker. Now, details are a little scarce on precisely how this will work, but I gotta say the balance with it has to land. It can't just be this flashy feature that doesn't really add meaningful content for the player. It has to make the battlefield feel more alive without getting in the way of the RTS strategy side of things. If they pull it off, the combat director might be the thing that gives Dawn of War 4 its own identity. Or alternatively, it could be the thing that drags it down into the dregs. So a quick interlude, we are covering Dawn of War 4 all the way to the launch. We will drop a review, faction breakdowns and everything, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. So I think the campaign side is where this game could be a lot more than just a solid skirmish RTS. Officially they're talking about 70 missions across 4 faction storylines, playable solo or in co-op, so me and Luke will be happy there. But I gotta say, it's a bloody good campaign pitch. The number's not the exciting part on its own. What matters to me is that the missions feed into a bigger sense of momentum. Dawn of War always felt best when the battles were connected and you weren't just clearing a level and pushing a way forward. And this is why the Crusade mode has my attention most of all. This is planned as a free post-launch mode, and from what it's been described as, it sounds closer to a longer form conquest layer, where armies can persist, units can level up, war gear will carry forward, and battles become part of a wider campaign. Very good for Dawn of War, I gotta say, because the RTS combat will give you the immediate chaos, but it's the campaign layer that gives you the reason to care about the next fight. This is what hooked me into Dark Crusade and Soulstorm back in the day. So if King Art can make that structure addictive, it will have that one more battle pull that made Dawn of War 1 so compelling. So we've been very positive so far, but let's ground these expectations and make them sensible. The alpha version I played left me positive, but there's still a lot Dawn of War 4 has to do to earn the trust back. Dawn of War 3 did real damage around this series, and simply bringing it back to the base building roots isn't enough on its own, but it is the right starting point, absolutely. But the whole package needs to feel like it understands why people fell in love with the game in the first place. Combat has to feel weighty and meaningful, factions need character, the campaign needs to feel fresh and have variety, and the presentation needs to be top notch. And I'll be honest, I'm going to have very little patience for any shortcuts. This is a major Warhammer 40k RTS revival with a big publisher behind it. I don't want to see cheap feeling assets, awkward voice work. I don't want to see AI generated stuff to save a few quid. The voices, animations, unit impact, the music, effects and atmosphere will all matter here. And finally, on a personal note, the Last Stand version needs to land because I absolutely loved it when I was growing up. It doesn't need to be the center of the whole game, this is a personal thing, but if you bring it back, let's make sure it's properly supported, replayable and worth sinking those hours into. So yeah, in summary, I am optimistic. I'm not going to give the game a free pass because it has the right ingredients. It's going to have to earn that trust back. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what comments or questions you'll have for the devs, and I'll try to get a hold of them and ask them myself. Alright guys, see you on the next one. Bye bye now.